DJ from PTA here. Wanted to go over some market sentiment. I placed 2 trades today on EBS and Nuro. Want to go over those trades. Today was a loser. Today was a losing day. I actually took 2 trades on Nuro and took a small win on that instead of getting the meter to move. So a couple things I want to talk about is really respecting your risk, and also just looking at overall sentiment. So I can kind of give you a breakdown of what was going on in each one of those trades. So overall, the SPY, which I have been telling people, is that we may get a nice little bounce up into the 408, 410 area. So just like it did, and then it tanked on May 17th. So what I'm expecting is it's already making higher lows, but tomorrow will really be the day. You know, if we get a wash below 385.15, we can look at going further down. So with that being said, this being a low, realistically, it's gonna be, hitting the area and then sort of coming back down. I think it's gonna continue to come back down. Maybe find some support at 364 or something like that for an initial bounce of some sort. It may even come down to 350s. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see it bottom out at 350 or something along that line. So something to think about for more of a long-term play, because we're definitely still in a downtrend, and that would be easily into August. So something to think about. And I think that's the reason why the market is kind of doing what it's doing. Everyone's looking to short. So ultimately, when you have these days where there's not a lot of volume, everybody's paying attention to one stock, that's when you start to have those type of plays like Nuro. It was a former runner. People know about it. Those type of things is what make that particular stock kind of move in a bear market. So the first trade I want to go over is EBS. EBS didn't have a lot of volume. I was trying to play it basically off of a bounce. It basically popped up into a gap, and my theory was that it'll continue on. I was looking up past 35.46 area. So my initial trade on that particular stock started off at 32.38. So let's break this down to the hour. So my theory was that 32.38. My theory was that it would continue up, maybe pull down, and then knock out the high. It came on our radar. One of our head traders was looking at this from a long position. He ended up not playing a trade, but I saw something in the script that made me really think it can actually go. But I had a very tight risk, and unfortunately, it did this move here. So when it went up, came back, respected this area, and then got in. I got in here. It actually went up to 33.56. Probably could have took profit, but I didn't. I wanted to kind of see what it was going to do, and I thought it would continue on, but it didn't. So once it popped up, I actually didn't get in here. I actually got in at 10 something right here. It was at let me look at the order, 957. So I got in around here. So my theory is that it already popped, made a high, made a low, it held it, came up, it held it again. So my theory is that it was going to continue on because I had so many holds on it. So let me kind of draw that out. This is the trend, but it then respected this area, put in shorts there, came back and started making higher lows. So when it double tap for support above the previous support area, I got really geeked about getting it right here, thinking it would kind of trail on and kind of continue on, maybe knock out the shorts here, pull back, and kind of make its way back to this area. Just didn't happen. But again, because I have a tight stop loss, it was only from here to here was my risk, and I end up getting out. And then as you can see, the trade kind of just faded for the rest of the day, kind of just went sideways. So wasn't an initial bad play, but again, you got to respect your risk, and and eventually faded. The stock ended up not really having that much volume, only about 1 million for the day. So it wasn't a hot ticker. I took a small trade on that one. That's why you see the losses where it's at. So it wasn't something that I had kind of held on to, thinking or loaded into, thinking it was going to take off. It's more of a filler type of thing. The next stock, which is the one that everybody played, which was Nuro. Nuro came off of a gap. So I was playing it off of entry day levels. Let's go back down to the hour. So ultimately, I got shook out of it twice. What I was looking at is that it held, pulled back, and then I started really playing it off of this area. So let's break this down to a 30-minute. We had this nice little pullback, and ultimately the area was like right around 4. That was support for pretty much the basis of the day. So let's go back here. So again, the basis of the chart was pretty much 4, which was there. So ideally I could have played it differently. They had marked its zones, but me being who I am as a trader, I wanted to squeeze in a little early. The first trade I actually got in was 427. So let me kind of show you how that looked on the chart, so that you can kind of get an idea of what a 427 entry looked like for me. And orange. So that's about where I got in at. So let me play it out. What I had was, again, fell down to support, united up, pull back, bounce, and then once it put in what I would consider higher lows off of the support, remember that this was support, it pulled up and then it pulled back right there and then did it again. So that gave me really a lot of confidence to get in here. So as the stock kept going, it would come back and respect and come back up, and then respect, came back up, respect. So then I started to actually move my stop loss up, because I was thinking that this was a zone, which it was, and I was thinking that it would go this way, but it ended up going that way. So that made me end up breaking even on that trade. Now I end up later on, because of price action. So after it had dropped here, still respecting support, it bounced, created a area. So I got in at 417. So once it ignited, because this was my risk right here. So my new risk area for me was like 406. I ended up night it came in, bounced, I got in there, it pulled back, bounced around, came back down to my entry. I actually missed it and then ripped. When it ripped, I'm thinking, okay. Then it kind of went sideways, as you can see. And then at that point in time, with me having a risk here, I end up putting my stop loss here because thinking it was building support to go higher. It actually got me out. Small gain. I think I made, I don't know, 7 cents or something like that. And then it just collapsed, hit my price that I got in at, built up, and then came back, respected it again, and then it took off. By this time, I have kind of just was tired of the stock and didn't really pay attention to the higher time frame. And if I had just moved out just one time frame, I would have held, because right there where I got in at, it came back but never knocked this out. Realistically, that's where the sweet spot was, right there. It's only 15 cents. So I got in good the second time, but because I didn't respect my risk, because I didn't let it play out, I lost on the trade. And I think it was just because of the sheer size that I had as well. Because my thought was, what it was doing this and bouncing around all day, I just didn't think it was actually going to make a break. But you know, in hindsight, when you go back and you look over the chart and then you look at the numbers, you know, when you got a stock that, you know, low float, you know, so let's look at the criteria. You got a low float. The next criteria you got is what I call float rotation or whatnot. So float rotation was active on it. What I mean by that is that basically everybody was paying attention to it, so it just kept rotating its float. Float rotation on this was about 10 times. So meaning it had a 7.1 float, but yet it traded 80.9 million shares. So to calculate float rate rotation, for those who don't know, is that you take the float and you multiply it by whatever this is. So what most people do is they take 80, you know, divided by 7.1. So that comes out to a number. So, you know, this thing rotated its float over 10 times today. So usually when a stock rotates its float that much, is bound for a rip. The second piece was it pretty much held this area on high volume. And every time they tried to bring it back to this area, if you notice, the volume dropped. So they were getting weak on the short side. So ultimately, when you look at this, the big push had a certain amount of volume right here. And when they pushed it down on higher volume, but not a lower price. Pushed it down again. This one here, that's this candle. Didn't have enough volume. So you look at it like this. You pretty much can see it as this volume here was higher than this volume here. So they couldn't push it. So if you look at every push down, okay, this was your first one. That was your second one. So first, second, and then your third push down, it failed. So it couldn't get below. Then we had some accumulation. So each one of these zones were accumulation of shorts. It never reached to like it was early part in the day. So ultimately, when they did get it over, which was this one, Still couldn't push it down. Then they tried one more time, and that sucked as well. So then if you look at the volume cues on the long side, very aggressive, did very well. So ultimately you can kind of look at the chart over time from the higher time frames and get a sentiment of which way the volume is going when it comes to the stock. This volume just kind of dried up on the short side over time, and they tried to rip it, they tried to do different things, and it just didn't work out. And this is like that fourth attempt. So when they couldn't get it that fourth attempt late in the day, they just ripped it. Everybody started taking cover, and they end up getting out of the trade. So it's something to think about when you're analyzing the chart from a higher time frame. Even if I go out a little higher, you can then start to see it again the same way. So every time they try to rip it down, the volume got weaker. Right there, that was 1 million, 1.1 million. This was 2.3, and then when they tried to rip it back down again, this was 857. So it was getting weaker and weaker and weaker. So now you know that it's holding its support and it's weakening on the short side. Now you're just looking for plays, pop moves to actually get involved in the stock and let it take off. So even when they tried to get it up and the volume and pull it back down, buyers took over and then took it to the next level. If you go down to a 2 hour, you can see it even more, that it just never broke the previous low. So it was always in the uptrend overall on the higher time frames. So yeah, ultimately that's how you want to make that trade. And then if you looked at it as a piece of, okay, I want to do the 2-3 bar play, then you could have went in and did look at the red, green, and then the continuation. So this was the reversal, this was the confirmation, and then that was the actual push, the actual move. So after it confirmed, this was the push. So there's several ways you could have looked at the chart differently to give you a different synopsis on which way that stock was going to go. I failed at looking at the higher time frame. I was just so focused on the 1 minute time frame because technically I was taking a little bit off and scalping, so on and so forth. But I should have been re-adding into the stock at a later point when it pulled down, because it never ever hit below $4, which was the support. So ultimately, you know, could have traded it better. But you know, that's why we study. That's why we go over charts. That's the reason why we look at things from multiple angles to see how everyone else was looking at it and see, because this is going to repeat again. It's just one of those things that stocks do. They're just going to repeat again. So you want to get familiar with that pattern, familiar with the reading support and resistance with the volume, so that you can ideally see exactly where you want to get in at and be patient with the trade. All right, guys, if you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button, hit the bell so you don't miss anything. Click the subscription button so you can make sure you stay in touch with us with all the videos that we post. And again, our staff is trying to stay consistent with these videos, so that actually when you hit that like button, it actually helps the algorithm. It also lets us know this is something that you actually learn from. So guys, as I tell everyone in the Discord and any other trader that I interact with, stay studying and stay focused.